Okay, so today we'll be solving by factoring. So we've already done this, so this should be pretty easy. So the first problems are actually here. Right here, go ahead and solution, root, and 0. They are all the same thing. It's the x-intercept on my graph, so I can use any of those words. Solution, root, or 0 are all the same thing. So factor and solve, find out what x is equal to. That'll give you any of those things. They're all the same thing on your graph, which is your x-intercept. So with these first problems here, we're just going to use the zero product property, which is just a fancy name for the arrow thing. So again, when I already have it factored, just like these problems, I can go ahead and just do the arrow thing. Go x minus 2 is equal to 0, and x plus 3 is equal to 0. I can add the 2 to the other side to get x is equal to 2. And I can subtract the 3 to the other side to get x is equal to negative 3. It doesn't matter how many parentheses there are. If there's an x in it, that means that I'm going to do the arrow thing with it. So this one, just like that, go 2x plus 6 is equal to 0, 3x minus 12 is equal to 0, and x minus 2 is equal to 0. I can subtract the 6, 2x is equal to negative 6, and then divide by 2 to get x is equal to negative 3. I can add the 12 to the other side, get 3x is equal to 12, divide by 3, get x is equal to 4. And then the last one, I can add the 2 to the other side and get x is equal to 2. Again, just setting each parenthesis that has an x equal to 0 and then solving. The next two are a little bit different. So the one on the left-hand side, you just have a single x on the outside. And so anything that has an x I have to do the arrow thing with. So when I do this, I'm going to do an arrow thing with the x on the outside, and then an arrow thing with the parenthesis. So I'll go x is equal to 0. It's already solved. That's one of my solutions. And then 4x plus 2 is equal to 0. Subtract the 2 to the other side, and get 4x is equal to negative 2. Divide both sides by 4. Be careful when you divide this. Again, it's smaller on the top than it is on the bottom, so it's going to be a fraction. I get negative 1/2. The second one is almost the same. Again, there's no x on the outside, so I don't have to do an arrow thing with that. So I can just do the arrow thing with what's inside the parentheses. 5x minus 2 is equal to 0. I can add the 2 and then divide by 5. So I get x is equal to, you can leave it as 2/5 or write it as 0.4. Either way is acceptable. The next number of problems are just review from what we've done before. So given a trinomial, I want to factor it first and then solve. So this is the same exact thing we did last chapter. So with the first one, again, there's no number in front of my x squared, so I can go right to my parentheses. My c value is negative, which means I'm going to do different signs and subtract. So I can go 1's a plus, 1's a minus. I want two numbers that multiply to get me 14, that subtract to get me 5. If I go 7 and 2, they multiply to get 14. They have a difference of 5. Again, the bigger number always has to be the same sign as my b value. So I go a negative 7 and a positive 2. Once I'm there, I do the arrow thing and get x is equal to, x plus 2 is equal to 0, and x minus 7 is equal to 0. So x is equal to negative 2, and x is equal to 7. I added the 7 to the other side to get my answer, and I subtracted the 2 to the other side to get my answer. With the next one, remember that there's an invisible 1 in front of my x. So again, I'm going to go right into my two parentheses. They are different signs, so diff and sub. So I go plus and a minus. 5 and 4 will multiply to get me to 20. Subtract to get me 1. Again, bigger number has to be the same sign as my b value, so a positive 5 and a negative 4. Do the arrow thing to solve. So I get x plus 5 is equal to 0, and x minus 4 is equal to 0. So x is equal to negative 5 by subtracting it to the other side, and then x is equal to 4 by adding it to the other side. The last one in the bottom right of the page will be one where we have to do our slide divide bottoms up. So I get x squared minus 15x plus 36 is equal to 0. My c value is positive, which means same and add. So when I do this, my parentheses here, I want two numbers that multiply to get me 36, that add to give me 15. So if I do 12 and 3, they multiply to get me 36, and they add to get me 15. So I go 12 and 3. And again, I want them to add to give me a negative 15, so I need them both to be minus signs because they need to be same signs. Don't forget to do my divide step, which is divide both of them by 2. So I get x minus 6, and then 2x minus 3 when I do my bottoms up. Again, show your good parentheses, then do the arrow thing. So x minus 6 is equal to 0, and 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. So x is equal to 6 by adding the 6 over to the other side. The second one, I can add the 3. Get 2x is equal to 3, and then divide by 2. To get x is equal to, you can write it as 3 halves or 1.5. Either way works. Go ahead and flip over to the back. What I need to do is, just like it says at the top, I need to get these in standard form first. And so be really careful. Sometimes it's easy to skip that step, but I want to move everything over to the other side. So in this problem, I want to move that negative 49 to the other side. So I'm going to add the 49 to the left-hand side. So I get x squared plus 14x plus 49 is equal to 0. It's an easy one, so I can just go ahead and go right to my parentheses. Both plus signs. Two numbers that multiply to get me 49 that add to give me 14 will be 7 and 7. Do the arrow thing. Get x plus 7 is equal to 0, and x plus 7 is equal to 0. So I get x is equal to negative 7 by subtracting it to the other side, and x is equal to negative 7 by subtracting it to the other side. It's called a double root. You have two solutions that are the same. The other one, same thing. I want to move the 8 over to the other side first to get everything to the same side, so I'm going to subtract the 8. I get 3x squared minus 10x minus 8 is equal to 0. Do my slide divide bottoms up, get x squared minus 10x minus 24 is equal to 0. Let's see, different signs, so it's diff and sub because I have a negative c value. And so when I do this, different signs, a plus and a minus. Two numbers that multiply to give you 24 that have a difference of 10, going to be 12 and 2. Again, bigger number has to have the same sign as my b value, so I'm a negative 12 and a positive 2. I'm going to divide both of these by 3, because that was, I need to divide what I slid. So in the first parenthesis, I get 3x plus 2. Second parenthesis, I get x minus 4. I can then do the arrow thing, get 3x plus 2 is equal to 0, and x minus 4 is equal to 0. I can subtract the 2 to the other side to get 3x is equal to negative 2. Divide by 3. So x is equal to negative 2/3. Again, leave it as a fraction because it is a repeating decimal. With the other one, I can add the 4 to the other side to get x is equal to 4. Again, same thing as we've done before. The last two are different, so make sure you're paying attention for these two and understand what we're doing. Again, I still want to get these in standard form, so I'm going to subtract the 14x over to the other side. So I get 2x squared minus 14x is equal to 0. And then what I have here is, again, it's not a trinomial. I'm missing my c value. So whenever I get one that looks like this, I want to factor out a GCF. And so the biggest number that divides 2 and 14 evenly is 2. My smallest exponent is my x to the first power. So I'm going to take a 2x out of each one of these terms up here. So again, the way that I do this is I divide both of these by 2x to see what's left inside the parentheses. So 2 divided by 2 gives me 1. X squared divided by x gives me x. 14 divided by 2 gives me 7. X to the first divided by x to the first gives me no x's left. And then this is kind of like the middle two problems we did on the front page. Everything with an x needs to have an arrow thing. So 2x is equal to 0, and then x minus 7 is equal to 0. So I can divide both sides by 2 to get x is equal to 0. And then the other one, I can add the 7 to the other side to get x is equal to 7. Same exact thing that I have here. I want to add the 3x over to the other side. Get 4x squared plus 3x is equal to 0. Again, I've got an a and a b, so I want to factor out a GCF. So the biggest number that divides 4 and 3 is 1. The smallest exponent is x to the first. So I can divide each of these by 1x. And you get 4x plus 3. Again, each thing that has an arrow thing, I want to do the arrow, each thing that has an x, I want to do the arrow thing with. So I get x is equal to 0 as my first solution. The other one, I get 4x plus 3 is equal to 0. So I can subtract my 3 to the other side and get 4x is equal to negative 3 and divide by 4. So x is equal to negative 3/4. Or if you wanted to write it, negative 0.75.